welcome to another episode in my channel. So today let's talk about the recovered patients of the COVID-19. Sorry for my hair. It's been really hot these days. It's like trial and hell. But anyhow, I researched multiple articles regarding the fuss about recovered patients being contagious or being positive again. So I've got you covered. I have research about the explanation and as such. But first and foremost, let us have our word back. So yeah, it's really hot, but first word will be contagious. So a disease that spread from one person or organism to another by direct or indirect contact. The second word will be immunity. It is the ability of an organism to resist a particular infection or toxin by the action of specific antibodies or sensitized white blood cells. So, an antibody, a blood protein produced in response to and counteracting a specific antigen, while antigen is a toxin or other foreign substance which induces an immune response in the body, especially the production of antibodies. So, first we'll talk about the recovered patients that are still contagious. So, coronavirus patients could still be infectious, says here, for up to 8 days after they've appeared to recover. So this small study was published in the American Journal of Respiratory and Critical Care Medicine that determined that half of the patients were still carriers of the virus even after the symptom resolved. And on average, says here that the patients still have the virus 2.5 days after no longer experiencing the symptoms, but individual cases range up to 8 days. And researchers cited that the other studies in the report that found those carrying the virus could still be contagious to others. So given these findings, they warned that the patients have appeared to recover could still spread this disease. So the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention currently recommends that the people with symptoms associated with coronavirus should self-isolate for at least 3 days after the resolution of a fever without fever-reducing medicines. So, also says here that however, the researchers noted that more studies were necessary since the report was limited in scope, that it's unclear whether the same results would be found with an older group or among those with compromised immune systems. So, another one that we'll talk about is the WHO investigates reports of recovered COVID-19 patients testing positive again. It says here that the Chinese doctors in Wuhan, where the virus first emerged, says a growing number of cases which people recovered from the virus but continue to test positive even without showing the symptoms. And it is now one of the biggest challenges of the country, moves into a new phase of its containment battle. So those patients that are tested negative for the virus to some point after recovering, then tested positive again. But says here, it has the average of 50 to 60 days. So the other article earlier says that it has 8 days, but here it is 50 to 60 days that the prospect of people remaining positive with the virus and therefore potentially infectious. And it became an international concern as many countries seek to end the lockdowns and resume the economic activities as the spread of the virus slowed. So, currently the globally recommended isolation period after exposure is 14 days. But so far, there are no confirmations of newly positive patients infecting others, according to these Chinese health officials. However, China, sorry, China has not um, published precise figures for how many patients fall into this category. But there are some disclosures by Chinese hospitals as well as other media reports indicate that there are at least dozens of such cases. So it says here that Yuan Yufeng, Yuan Yufeng, a vice president in Chongnan Hospital in Wuhan, told that he was aware of the case of which the patient had tested positive recessed after being diagnosed with the virus about 70 days earlier. He said that we did not see anything like this during the SARS, referring to the 2003 coronavirus outbreak. And patients in China are discharged after 2 negative tests taken at least 24 hours apart, 2 days, and no longer show the symptoms. And some doctors want this requirement to be raised to 3 or more tests. So Wang Qiang, director of the Infectious Disease Department of Peking University First Hospital, said that the briefing that the majority of such patients were not showing symptoms and very few had seen their conditions worsen. Says here by a National Health Commissioner official Guo Yanhong that the new coronavirus is a new type of virus, and for this disease, the unknowns are still greater than the knowns. And experts and doctors alike are struggling to explain why the virus behaves so differently with these people. Some suggest that the patients retesting as positive after previously retesting negative were somehow reinfected by the virus. This would undermine the hopes that people catching COVID-19 would produce antibodies that would prevent them from getting sick again. But the World Health Organization, or the WHO, announced that they are investigating the reports that coronavirus patients who initially tested positive again a few days later. So this comes in the South Korea that reports 91 coronavirus patients they believe that has recovered from the disease tested positive again. So guidelines from the WHO on clinical management recommended that a clinically recovered COVID patient should test negative for the virus twice, with the test conducted at least 24 hours apart before being discharged from the hospital. The COVID-19 patients in South Korea were being considered for the discharge after testing negative for the disease. However, tests administered later showed positive results. So, South Korean health officials said they will be launching a epidemiological investigations to determine what was behind this trend. John Eun-kyung, the director of Korea's Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, said that the news briefing that the virus may have been reactivated in the patients as opposed to the patients of being reinfected again. And according to WHO, current studies showed that the patients with mild COVID-19 experience a period of about 2 weeks between onset of symptoms and clinical recoveries. But it remains unclear why these patients testing positive again after they were believed to recover the COVID-19. And people who have been infected, says here, that develop antibodies can probably fight off the coronavirus if they encountered it again, making them temporarily immune to the coronavirus, according to the Business Insider's Morgan McFall Johnson. However, like I said earlier, it is unclear how long this protection lasts, as it is a new type of virus. We don't really know what is the original strain or patient zero. That's why scientists are still studying about this virus, since this virus reacts differently to people rather. Some show symptoms, some shows no symptoms, some shows severe symptoms, some shows not so severe. That's why it's really important for the scientists to really know who is the patient zero. And here, Dr. Anthony Fauci said that people who recover from the coronavirus will likely to be immune should the second wave of infection spread in the early fall. But preliminary studies about the coronavirus immunity shows that not all recovered patients develop the antibodies needed to protect ourselves from the virus. So, last but not the least, those who recovered from the coronavirus can be left with reduced lung function. So, the Hong Kong Hospital Authority made the findings after the study of the first wave patients who were discharged from the hospital had fully recovered from the COVID-19. However, out of 12 people, 2 to 3 saw changes in their lung capacity. It says here that they gasp if they walk more quickly, and some patients might have around a drop of 20 to 30% in lung function. And according to Owen Chang Tak-yin, the medical director of the authority's infectious disease center, that patients can do cardiovascular exercises like swimming to improve their lung capacity over time. While it's too early to establish a long-term effects of this disease, scans of 9 patients' lungs also found patterns of similar to frosted glass in all of them, suggesting there was an organ damage.
This CT scan was taken from a coronavirus patient in different points in time. It shows that the person's ground gas became more pronounced as their illness progressed. That's a phenomenon in which fluid builds up in lungs and presents itself as a white patches.
So that's it for our video for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll place all the articles at the description box. Feel free to view them, and feel free to comment too, and let's talk about this video. And oh my god, and I'm very sorry for the stammering. It's been long since I created a new video, and like I said before, I'm not really a talkative person. Anyways, I hope to see you at the next videos. I have 3 topics working on, and I hope to see you all soon. Bye bye!